Okay, to remove the front locks and the distributor, we'll have to remove the windshield header panel, and that is fastened simply with 6 Phillips screws. 1 Phillips screw on top of the rubber here, 1 Phillips screw hiding under it, and 1 Phillips screw each holding these trim pieces on the front lock panels in place. So let's do that quickly. Put the removed screws into a magnetic tray. We've already removed the second Phillips screw that's hiding under the rubber here. One more. Now this trim piece needs to be moved towards the outside. Let's give it a little tap, and here you can see there are 2 tabs that are sliding under the front lock. So to remove this trim piece, slide it towards the outside. Do the same thing on the other side. We've already removed the 2 Phillips screws here, loosened this one. We'll slide this trim piece towards the outside, take it off. Now we want to loosen this windshield header trim panel. Sometimes they can be pretty tight from just caked in dirt or just being very tightly on fastened down. So we need to wiggle a lot, and the basic idea is to wiggle the rear end loose, and then once that is loose we start pulling towards the back, because there are tabs in this trim panel that slide under tabs in the header here. So get one side loose, slide it a little bit, then get the other side loose and slide on that one as well. Here we go. We lift the rubber out of the way. Now, very important on model years 95 and younger, this one here happens to be a 97, we need to watch out for the magnetic switch, actually magnetic sensor inside this windshield header trim panel. Do not let the panel just dangle, because if this connector here comes loose, you're going to have too much tension on the wires for the tiny little vacuum tube that is a reed sensor that senses the front of the soft top coming near. So best way to remove this wire is with a flat screwdriver. Just pry in here. It's a friction fit, and pull out the connector. Now you can just put the windshield header panel aside. So here we have the 2 front locks and the distributor. Let's start with removing the front locks. To get the locks unfastened, there are 3 Torx T30 bolts. Let's get those out. 1, 2, 3. Bolts into the magnetic tray, so you don't have to look for them all over the place. Next thing, you want to lift this lock up a little bit, and now you can take out the hydraulic line clips. You can simply lever a small flat screwdriver between the clip and the cylinder housing, and lever that clip out of the way. You don't have to remove the clip all the way, but you may as well, because you'll need to put it back onto the other cylinder. So put the clips into the magnetic tray, and one last step before we pull the hoses out, we do want to disconnect this lock electrically, the wire going to the micro switch. Again, stick your flat screwdriver in between these 2 connectors and they come apart easily. As I said, that's a friction fit. we have the hydraulic line clips loose, and all we have to do is wiggle and pull a little bit to get both hoses out at the same time. Here we have a front lock in our hand. We do the same thing on the other side, and then we move on to the distributor. We'll skip removing the other lock because it's simply the mirror action of what's been done here, and we'll do the distributor next. Here we have an R129 right front lock cylinder. Imagine this being mounted overhead, windshield in front of you, and of course here is where you would put in your soft top tool to turn the latch. What I'm trying to show you is the micro switch assembly in the rear. The micro switch gets triggered by a metal lever. Currently the lock is open. With the lock open, the lever pushes down on the switch. The switch is a normally closed one. Now that it's getting triggered, it has an open circuit. And the rationale behind this is when the latch is closed, only when the latch is fully closed will there be a closed circuit from this micro switch telling the computer everything is safe. And this is a fail-safe in case a wire gets cut somewhere. You will only get the soft top is latched securely signal through an open circuit, signaling that both micro switches on the front locks are closed. So why am I showing you this? This lever that pushes on the micro switch can get bent accidentally when you take the the lock out of the car, or these locks can develop play with time where the switch doesn't get triggered perfectly anymore. So the next thing to show you is if you were to put the soft top tool in here, you cannot turn the latch from the open position before you simulate the striker from the soft top pushing onto this mechanism. Then suddenly, if you push down hard enough, you're able to turn this latch. Now with the latch fully closed, you will see that this lever has just released the micro switch. It barely touches the switch. That's exactly the way it's supposed to be, but it does not click it. If the front locks develop play over time, then, or if this lever gets bent, then as there's tension on the soft top pulling up on the mechanism, this metal lever may be able to push the micro switch hard enough until it clicks. So that will sometimes happen to you. If you go over a bump, you suddenly hear a chime. What's happening is the play in the latch has, together with a soft top pulling up on the mechanism, allowed this lever to trigger the switch. As soon as the switch gets triggered, you get an alarm that the front isn't fully latched. To fix this, the solution is very simple. You do not adjust the micro switch itself. You actually bend the lever up a little bit. So you close the latch, you put some pressure on the mechanism here to take the play out of it, and you bend this lever to the position that you see now until it barely touches the switch, but it does not trigger it, and that will turn off the chime. To remove the front distributor, we actually need to remove the dome light assembly. In order to get the dome light assembly off, we first have to remove the rear view mirror and the two map lights. Let's do the rear view mirror first. It may seem scary, but it's really not that bad. Rear view mirrors are always mounted on a spring mount, so that in case of an accident, if somebody hits the mirror actually plops out of place. So let's simply simulate an accident. That is the safest way to remove this rear view mirror. Hold it with one hand and push on the bottom and here you see the spring mount has released. Now we only need to disconnect the electrical connector, get it out of the way first, pull on it, and the mirror is gone. Now next we have 5 Phillips screws to remove. There are 3 in this aluminum spring mount for the mirror itself. Of course, throw your screws into the magnetic tray so you don't lose them. That is that. Then, as I said before, the map lights. The trick to the map lights is they swivel out. So push on one end, pull a little bit on the other, and you would be putting them back in later on the same way. Simply swivel them back in. Swivel out both map lights and find the 2 Phillips screws that are hiding up in here. One, 2, and the dome light will be coming off in a moment. Here we go, catch the screw, put it in the tray, pull down the dome light assembly, disconnect a couple electric connectors. They're just friction connectors. And here's the dome light assembly dangling down. We see the front distributor here. The front distributor is fastened with a Phillips screw in the windshield header. We've already loosened that. And now we just take out the hydraulic line clips, as we've done on the front locks, by levering a screwdriver under there. One clip, second one, come on. Second screw clip is out. Now we can just wiggle these hoses a little and pull them out. And here is our distributor. Ta-da! One more detail on the distributor. It does have the hose numbers printed on it, and they match the the tags on the metal hoses going in there. So here we have the 2 front locks and the distributor reinstalled, and just a couple small points. The hose numbers match up: 49, 49, 46, 46, 44, 44, 47, 47, meaning we actually have everything installed the right way here. Be sure to reconnect the electrical connections here, and on model years 95 or younger, be sure to reconnect the magnetic sensor that goes in the windshield header panel. If that is not reconnected and back in its place, then the top will not latch in the front. If you should have trouble with this magnetic sensor, it's easy to take out, and you could also do a dry run of the whole system without putting the panel back in by just reconnecting the sensor and putting it approximately where it would be seated in the header panel. That's right around here, a little bit off center to the left. So this will detect the magnet from the soft top as it approaches the front. And for those who have damaged their sensor, part number is on the plastic part here, 12982114151. Now I'm going to show you how to put the dome light assembly back in, and lastly reattach the rearview mirror. So over here we just have to plug in a couple wires that are actually going to the vanity lights on the visors. Then we get this dome light assembly back in place and reinstall the 2 bolts above the swivel lights, above the map lights. Number 1. 2. Pop in the map lights, make sure we're putting the correct one on each side. They're easy to mix up. We swivel them back in the way they had swiveled out before. There's the other one over here. There's that. Now we have the mounting plate for the rear view mirror assembly with its 3 hex bolts, not hex Phillips. After I get those bolts in, I will be reattaching the wiring harness from the rear view mirror and then pop in the mirror itself. There we go, wiring harness can fit only one way, and we scoot it back into place where it was before in its holder. Lastly, we turn the mirror the way it's supposed to be, and one firm push up and it's back in place. Now we move on to the windshield header trim. This has to be reinstalled even for a test run on model years younger than 95 or 95 and younger, because the magnetic sensor has to be in place, and the part number for the magnetic sensor, by the way, is printed on this black plastic piece. You could also take the whole black plastic piece here out of the windshield header trim panel and put the sensor over here where it would normally be, with the panel in place if you want to do a dry run. So let's connect this already and put the windshield header trim piece in place. The trick really is to pull the 2 rubber corners up and slide the panel under them. And now let's back the panel off a little bit, so that we have a 1/4 inch gap here between the rubber trim and the panel, and try to push all the front end down at the same time so that the tabs slide in place. Now we just push the panel and there we are, it's down. And lastly, we put down the 2 trim pieces on top of the locks. Keep in mind that we have the tabs that slide under the middle of the lock. There it is, left one is in, and on the right side that one's in, and we'll just fasten the 2 bolts and then the 2 Phillips screws on each side, and we're done.